Hey, first of all, my original editor from the AJC is here, Tom Teepin, a great guy, and Sandy, his wife, is here. So, thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, Mr. Tom. This is great. This is great. Now, I haven't been to the Dr. Seuss exhibit, but I did go to the Seuss exhibit way back when he was still with us. This was in New Orleans, and I was at the New Orleans Times-Picayune. And the New Orleans Art Museum was having an exhibition of his stuff, and I had lunch with Dr. Seuss. So it was incredible. And the guy, he does these really wild things, but he was so, just calm and quiet. And I did a drawing of him, and I forgot to give it to him at the end of the lunch. And I never asked him, I should have asked him for a Cat in the Hat or something. Isn't that silly that I didn't do that? But he was really a fabulous guy. He drew editorial cartoons as well, trying to get America to wake up to the Nazi threat. And even then, when he was a young guy doing these editorial cartoons, he still had that same goofy style that he always had. And I thought that, looking at his editorial cartoons, I thought that was so neat, because most of the cartoonists back then drew kind of in a really kind of a dark way, and they weren't fun, and his were really fun. So I really appreciate his work. But now my job is really, I've been at the AJC since 1989, and my editor has cracked down on me a little bit. She says that I now have to be in by noon. So things have changed since I was with Tom, and I would just show up at 3 or 4. I have to be in by noon, and of course the first thing I do is I have lunch. So I have lunch, and then I sit at my desk, and to the untrained eye, it doesn't look like I'm doing anything. Because I'm really not doing anything. I'm sort of, I'm reading the AJC, I'm reading the New York Times, I'm looking at the internet, various blogs and news sites, but I'm waiting for the magic hour of 3 p.m. Because what happens, they say when a runner is running, they get a runner's high, it's called. Well, around 3 o'clock, I get sort of a silliness high. And it's at that point that I can kind of take a topic, and maybe a topic that I've written down, and start trying to, get my point across on an issue using humor. And I'm just sort of a late, I'm not a morning person. So around 3 o'clock that happens, and I take a couple of ideas. They're just very rough sketches, and I bring them to. Have you heard of Jay Bookman? He's the columnist at the AJC. Now I really like Jay, because Jay is so honest with me. And 99 times out of 100, I'll bring him the first couple of ideas, and he'll just say, no, those aren't very good. And I love that. I think I have a problem because I like to be rejected. Because once I'm rejected, I go back into my office, and I think to myself, I'm really going to show Jay now. And so I'll come up within 15 or 20 minutes, a couple more ideas that are better than the first two. And often, most of the time, he rejects the next ones. Sometimes it's an ongoing thing until like 5 or 5:30, and he's just telling me no, and I'm actually apologizing to him because I'm saying, sorry, these things stink. But it really helps me to, it just makes me do better and better. And as my final deadline is 5:30, so I start to panic. So the way I work is I procrastinate and then panic. That's how I come up with my ideas. And so as it gets later and later, and the part that's really hard is like if there's not a good issue, or if it's the same issue that I've been doing cartoons on, and there's no new thing to say, then I just really panic. But I just really zero in on what I'm doing, and oftentimes at 5:30, when it's it's my drop dead deadline, that's when I come up with some of my favorite cartoons. So it's a weird profession. I'll show you some here that I've done recently, and then I'll take some questions. Now, while I'm getting this ready, Cookie had asked me about something. She asked me, you know, as an editorial cartoonist, I'm dealing with negative issues and a lot of issues that people, you know, people are upset about. Things, you know, bad things that are happening in the world, or bad things that maybe our president or someone else's president is doing. And so she asked me, how do I do cartoons on those issues without getting really upset and having that come through? And I really, you know, I want to be interesting, and I want people to read me, and humor is a big part of that for me. I think that humor is what really, you know, if I can make my point using humor, that's the best for me. And it's oftentimes that I really have to sit back and think, you know what, I'm just so ticked off here that I need to take a breath and try and find a humorous way to make the point that I'm so pissed off about. And so it's really, sometimes it's really not easy to separate that. Okay. This cartoon, I did this a few years ago, but you know, it shows how fast things change in our culture. Remember, it wasn't that long ago when the thought of gays marrying, you know, that was the Republican wedge issue. That's how they, you know, how they governed by scaring people about, you know, gays in your neighborhood married. Well, now, you know, it hasn't quite happened, but, you know, people are much more accepting of gays and the idea of gays in the military and gays marrying. So I did this cartoon. I've got Osama saying, here's my plan for destroying America. We sneak in and marry each other. Now, if you notice, these two guys are looking at each other. You know, they're eyeing each other. Now, I mentioned earlier, you know, sometimes the issues, you know, summertime the issues are difficult because news sort of slows down a little bit. And, you know, the oil spill has been a continuing, just a continuing terrible thing. So, you know, I'm looking for new points to make with this. So I've got a gentleman, he's saying, who needs a pole? Who needs a pole? The fish float right up to you. Never petted a pelican before? Now you can, or you can now. It's a BP PR person. Now, wouldn't that be a tough job, being a PR person for BP? That's gotta be, you would really have to be creative there. This I did last year. This is just, you know, he's such a great hero, and there's very few heroes. So I've got a bunch of steroid takers saying, how come when we take steroids, he gets bigger? So, thank you. Now, this, I don't know why I like this cartoon a lot because, you know, I tried texting while driving, and it's very scary. And I'm, you know, a somewhat experienced driver, and we have, gosh, 3 kids now that drive, so I'm really worried for them, and I'm always telling them, no, don't text when you drive. So this is a 2-panel cartoon. In the first panel, you see this kid he's writing, "I'm texting while driving," and the recipient of the text is saying LOL, laugh out loud, because it's the Grim Reaper. Now I like to sometimes combine different things that are going on, and you know, last year a lot of people were watching the Atlanta Housewives, and so and I like drawing caricatures, so I drew Kim and Nene here, and they're saying we can't compete with the Oh, now this is one of my. I really like this cartoon because it just sort of all fell together. This was shortly after the oil spill, and I did it to Margaritaville. He's saying, "Wasting away again in Petroleumville, hoping for my addiction to halt. Some people claim that there's an oil rig to blame, and I know it's my own damn fault." So I like that one. Thank you. And don't I have a lovely singing voice? This is I kind of like this one too. This is when that, I don't understand people sometimes, but Joe Barton, the Texas Republican, who apologized to BP for their unfair treatment. They said that $20 billion that Obama got BP to put aside was they were being shaken down, and so I've got Barton. This is a 2-panel. In the first panel, he's saying, "I'm sorry the spill has harmed an innocent creature like you. I'll bathe and nurse you back to health." And you see it's the CEO of BP that he's bathing and nursing back to health. This is on the debate over gays in the military. A soldier saying, "We're uncomfortable with gays in the military," and the other guy says, "Yeah, they're clumsy." This is part of the craziness in our country right now. This is show me your paper. Thanks. This is also what's going on in the country. This is during the State of the Union. You see it. Gosh, you can't make that out. That's Obama there. I don't know why it's not turning out very. He's at the State of the Union podium, and the Republicans have spelled out no. This is one of my big fears. This is the all-over body scan. You see. And while we're on the subject of nudity, this was after Pat Robertson, the Haiti disaster, and I can't even remember what did he say. He said something really stupid. Was it God's will or something that happened? One of his.
It was that 200 years ago, their president made a pact with the devil.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, thank you. So this is. Now let me point something out here. Because I wait so long to come up with an idea, I don't pencil anything in when I draw. And so what I do is I'll do a very rough sketch, almost like a stick figure. And then once I get the approval, I'll just ink right on the drawing here. And so I use a lot of whiteout. Now, you can see on his stomach all that kind of weird-looking stuff. That's all whiteout that I've used. And what happened, and up here, there's whiteout. And so there have been times when I'll be at work, and then at night I'll give a speech somewhere. And I'll be talking to everybody, and then I'll come home, and I'll walk past a mirror, and I'll have a big streak of whiteout down the side of my face that no one has mentioned to me, but because I have it all over my fingers, I'm always blending it and all this stuff. So, anyways. So this is, Tiger Woods has been an excellent thing for me. So I've got Bill Clinton is saying to Mark Sanford, he's saying, he's got to be first at everything. So this is. Since we're on sports, sort of, this was just sort of a silly cartoon. There was a lot of talk about, and Chipper had talked about possibly retiring and then not, and it became a distraction. And so he's now saying he's decided to retire. I don't even know what that means, but. Here's another thing on gays in the military. It's, in hindsight, it's a bummer we discharged all the gay troops. Do you remember, this was, when was this? Was this year? Yeah, this was at the very end of January, that panda bear, Milan? Yeah, Milan. Not my lawn, Milan, something like that. That panda was shipped back to China. It was a rent-a-panda. And so this is what actually occurred when it went back to China. It's actually a spy. Now, you know, because of what the state's been going through and what all states have been going through with the budget crisis, you know, there are fewer teachers. So this is. Now, see, this goes to Cookie's question she had for me. Where are you, Cookie? Oh, there's Cookie. You know, I've got a daughter that's going to be going to UGA in the fall, and I read about all these teachers and being laid off while, you know, our state legislature is unwilling to, you know, raise taxes, and they're, you know, giving tax breaks for stadiums and things like that. So it's just one of those things that I have to, you know, think, well, now I need to make my point with humor, and so it's that's sometimes hard. This is on the Toyota thing. This is. Here's another. This is on gas. This is sort of on gas prices, but it's oil prices, and you see the prices are now the Gulf of Mexico, our national security, and the world's climate. And the guy saying, I miss when it cost $2. You know? Now some people got angry over this cartoon. I kind of liked it. I'll tell you why people got angry, but I drew the three. I think this is on the ad too for this. You know, we went to Atlanta public schools, and we got high test scores. Now the reason why some people objected is because I wrote pubic. And see, now I just thought, oh, this is fun. I didn't think people would get upset, but they did. Now this is sort of a funny story. This is weird how things happen, but there's this award. I don't want to get the name wrong. The Judge Weltner Award, and it's a First Amendment award, and it's really a cool award. And I got it this year, and so it was really a big. You don't have to applaud. No, it's all part of the story, but I appreciate that. But so it was kind of a cool honor, and So I knew that the guest speaker at this thing was going to be Ralston, the Speaker of the House, and he was coming to this thing to deliver this speech, and but the day before, the legislature had passed ethics legislation, so-called ethics legislation. There really wasn't. It was in ethics legislation in name only, and the main force behind it was Ralston. So I knew that the day that I was going to get this award and the day that he was going to be speaking, I knew that it was like the big issue of the day. And so the next day, the day that he was giving the speech, this cartoon ran. And I didn't mean for it. It's just weird how things work out. So I drew him. He's saying, I enacted ethics reform. Goodies must be placed in my garter only. So I didn't know how he would take that, and so I was a little bit concerned. So I go to this dinner, and I see him there, and we get together, and he's actually very nice, and he said, well, did you bring a copy of that drawing by any chance? And I said I actually brought the original that I'll give to you during this thing. So he got up and he gave his speech about all the magnificent accomplishments of the legislature this past session, and then he called me up, and I gave him the drawing that I had done, and he gave me a black garter belt. So I have that frame now. I thought that shows he's got a good sense of humor, and I always appreciate when someone, a politician, doesn't take themselves too seriously, and so that was kind of nice. All right, let's see what else we have in this. This is just sort of off topic. This is, Playboy 3D centerfold. It's like she's reaching out to me. Now sometimes, with cartooning, you can't always use humor because the issue is, it just doesn't call for it. This cartoon I did, I knew that we were going to be, we were reaching our 2,000th soldier killed in Iraq, and so I was thinking how I wanted to mark that. And so I came up with this idea, and I knew that the 2000th was going to be announced in the upcoming week. So during the weekend, while I wasn't having to deal with my children, I would do this for a little while, sitting at my kitchen table. And so this is the 2,000 American soldiers killed in Iraq. So I wrote each of their names in spelling out why. Thank you. And it was very emotional for me to do it because there were so many. It's hard to talk about this, but it's African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, all these people who had given their lives for America, and so it really personalized it for me to write out all these names. But what was really great about this after I had it finished is I brought it in, and the publisher at the time was John Malott. John is a very conservative Republican, but he's also, first and foremost, he's a newspaper guy. So even though he was full on board with the Iraq War, he saw that and he says, I'm worried that if we reduce it down, we're going to lose the names. We're not going to be able to see the names. So he went with me, and we went on to the printmaker area, where they print the paper, and we ran off copies, and it actually ran full size on the editorial page, and I thought that was really neat. And then it became a big topic of discussion on the AJC.com's website. So it really was it turned out to be a great thing that way, and that is one of my favorite cartoons, even though there's no humor involved in that. This is on airport security. Let's see what else we got. This is on protecting the quarterback is a dirty, degrading job. That's however you say Roethlisberger's attorneys there. So that I would hate doing that. I'm Catholic, and our kids have all gone through Marist. We have one left. She's not quite there yet, but the last one just graduated. And John, our oldest, he is graduating from college now. But when he was going to Marist during the initial pedophile scandal in America, I was doing a lot of cartoons hitting the Catholic Church, and John was walking on campus at Marist, and a couple of the priests said, "Hey, John, come here." And they said, "Hey, John, we know you're Catholic, but what religion is your dad?" and so I've done, and then this whole other, the European version, I guess, of the pedophile scandals ongoing, and so I wonder what he'll do to take the focus off the church's European abuse scandals, and he's announcing, like Tiger, he's going to play in the Masters. I'm Catholic, but it's like this, back to Cookie's question. This just ticks me off. This ticks me off, and the way that the bureaucrats, the Pope, and that whole crew, it just really is annoying to me. as a Catholic that's going on. Now here, I'll finish it up with this, and then I'll take your questions and tell you some hopefully interesting stories. But and I'll do a little drawing as well. But one thing that I really like, the time when my job is easiest is during the political campaigns, because you have all these politicians and they're saying things that are off script, and I love that. And so I was thinking. Remember when Jesse Jackson made that comment? It was picked up, it was like on Fox or CNN, where he was upset at Obama and he wanted to rip his jewels off. And where did that come from? But so I was thinking, that's a great topic. And so I was thinking, what could I do on that? So I've got the... See, don't I have a fun job? It is so great, because here's the thing. They don't make me go to meetings, so I don't have to deal with other human beings. And so I get into my office noonish, and I sit and I come up with ideas, and I'm able to start, I start with a blank sheet of paper, and by the end of the day, I've completed my daily thing, and I'm able to take a copy home and show my wife. And so every day I'm able to start and complete a task and not have to go to meetings. And I love that every day. And I get to draw. Drawing's my favorite thing, so it really is fun. Why don't I take a couple of questions right now, and then I'll do a couple drawings. Oh yes. Yeah.
Since you are syndicated in so many newspapers, do we get to see your work first?
Yes. Yes, that's how it works. The cartoon that I draw goes in, around 6 o'clock, 6:30 into the goes to the AJC, and it's put up almost immediately on the AJC.com's website. And then the next morning it comes out in the AJC print edition. Now, usually by the time I'm done with my drawing and I transmit it to the syndicate, they're closed for the day. So the following day, then the cartoon is transmitted to other newspapers, and so it's usually like a day later when they would run it, if they choose to. They don't have to run the syndicates that pick up my cartoons. They can run them or not, and depending on whether they have their own cartoonist or not, it depends on how many times I get run in various newspapers. Yes, sir.
What determines whether your cartoons are in black and white or in color? Most of them are black and white.
Yes. Sunday determines that. They want me to draw a cartoon in color on Sunday. And so at first I was like really excited about it, and I said, oh, okay, how about if I do it every day? And my editor said, no, let's just go with Sunday for now. And I'm so thankful she talked me out of that, because drawing them in color takes a long time, because what I do is I do them in black and white, and then I color it on the computer, and so I'm using my mouse, and you have to color each little thing, and I'm just slow at it too, and it takes me a long time. So so it's just the one day a week that I do that. Yes, sir.
Have you had some that were so controversial that they wouldn't print it?
Yes, that occasionally happens. Cynthia Tucker used to be my editor. She's now a columnist in Washington. But she had a whole wall of cartoons that she had rejected for one reason or another. But you know what? You really do need an editor to do that, because when you're a cartoonist and you're thinking, sometimes an idea that you come up with seems very reasonable until someone points it out to you that it's insane. And do you remember about a year ago, a cartoonist, it was when Obama had done passed his stimulus bill, and a cartoonist at the New York Post drew a couple of cops, and during that same week, a chimp or an ape had gone berserk, and I think ripped really killed a woman or something. So he drew the cops. And the cop has shot the ape, and a cop is saying, well, now he won't be able to pass or come up with a second stimulus or something. Do you remember that cartoon? It was very controversial because everyone said, well, that, he's referring to Obama there. And I can't speak for the cartoonist, but I know that as a cartoonist, you're taking events that are going on out there, like a crazed ape, or something that's happening in the culture, and you're trying to combine it with something else, and that's how you get the humor. So I think he was trying to he was thinking, I'll make the ape the author of the stimulus, because he disagreed with the stimulus. And he needed an editor there, and then to say, no, people are going to think you're talking about Obama. You can't do that cartoon. And that's, now he may be a secret racist, this cartoonist. I don't know the guy, but I just know how I get in my head, and I have done cartoons that they have stopped me from doing, and I'm glad that they stopped me. I've also done cartoons that I don't realize, and I like controversy, but I like controversy when people understand my cartoons and they get offended. But what happens so often is that people will not understand, and the symbolism will kind of be so strong that they don't get what I'm trying to say. A few years ago, I did a cartoon where it was when America torturing was first being discussed, and a lot of people just couldn't believe that Americans were torturing. So I did a cartoon, and I've got an Al-Qaeda torturer. He's wearing a hood, and he's carrying a knife, and I've got a guy with an American flag on him. He's wearing a hood, and he's carrying a whip, but he's looking at a book labeled Torture Etiquette, and he's telling the Al-Qaeda guy, he's saying, okay, turn to page 3, paragraph 8, line number, like he's trying to instruct him on what's appropriate torture etiquette. And so, so that cartoon ran, but juxtaposed above the cartoon were a couple of American servicemen that had been tortured and killed, and I think beheaded in Iraq. So I had nothing to do with that juxtaposition, but that's what happens. And Tom, I'm sure, can tell you stories about, you're putting out a daily newspaper, and things get put in the newspaper that you have no idea how they're going to be taken. And so people took that very emotionally, and it just became this huge issue. And Bill O'Reilly talked about it on his show, and so Cox Enterprises, the people that own the paper, they had a little security car that was parked in our neighborhood, and we'd see people in the backyard. They were Cox security checking, because we were guys getting a lot of death threats and things. And then the way these things always go is after 2 or 3 days, they all kind of die down and go away. But after 2 or 3 days, RBM took out a full-page ad with a letter condemning the cartoon, and it just got it all started again. And it's a strain kind of. I'm always glad when those things peter out, but that usually happens, every couple of years, where some cartoon will just really get people upset, and it's just part of the job. Yes, sir. Yes, I've got a couple of books. The last book I did was in 2006. It's called Lots of Luckovich. And, it shouldn't be a big deal because, it's just a bunch of cartoons mainly. And so it's not like I really have to write a whole lot. I mean, I just have to, open up a file cabinet and put some cartoons together. But I did, the last book, I did do a little bit of writing. And I'll take a couple more questions, but I'll tell you a very quick story that's in this book, because I mentioned to someone, it deals with Henry Kissinger. And now, have you ever heard of the, what is that, cartoonist, no, not the cartoonist, White House Correspondents' Dinner. It's every year, the White House and the political press and get together, and a lot of celebrities have started coming to this thing, and they always have they have a dinner speaker. And the year I went, I've gone a number of times, but this particular time it was Stephen Colbert, and it was when Bush was president, and it was great. So I was with another cartoonist friend of mine who Tom knows, Mike Peters. This guy is so funny. And so Mike and I, we were going to be together at this thing. So before the dinner starts, they have a cocktail party. And so various cocktail parties around the dinner at the big Washington Hilton, I think. I think that's where Reagan was shot. So it's this big hotel. And so I always go to the Washington Post Newsweek cocktail party because, you know, that's hometown, so you get a lot of interesting people in there. So before the cocktail party started, Mike was in his room, so I was in my room, and I said, okay, Mike, let's go to the cocktail parties. And I said, okay, I'll meet you in the lobby. Bring your sunglasses and bring the phone cord from your hotel phone. And he said, okay. And he didn't even ask me why. He just said, okay. And so we get down there, and we've got our sunglasses and our hotel phone. And we went into the cocktail party, and we were early. And so we're hanging around in there, and there's not too many people in there. But then in comes George Clooney and his father. He was there. He had done something, I think, from the Sudan, I think, or a video thing with his dad. And so he was talking about that there. And so he came in, and Mike and I got to meet George Clooney and his father. And then the place got really crowded because everyone was gravitating to where the big celebrity was. And so it got very crowded. And so Mike and I, we left the cocktail party, and we went outside the cocktail party to the main door where everyone was coming in. And I stood on this side, and Mike was on the other side of the door. And so I instructed Mike, you know, put your sunglasses on, and then take the phone cord and take the end and stick it in your ear, and then take the other part and stick it back behind your shirt. So we were in our tuxedos, and we had sunglasses on and a phone cord coming from our ear. And what we were hoping to do, and we were trying to be very serious, and we were hoping that, you know, when Clooney and his dad and his security detail came out, that we would join up with them and walk onto the dinner. So we were waiting for that. We were waiting, and they hadn't come out yet, but Henry Kissinger had. So Henry Kissinger comes out. Now, you know, this is like 6:30 at night, and, you know, it's in a hotel, so you don't really need sunglasses. But we have our sunglasses on, and the thing is, and he looks up at us, and he says to Mike and I, "Will you escort me to the dinner?" And so I said, okay. And so we were walking along, Henry Kissinger, myself, and Mike Peters, the other cartoonist, and we were walking down a long corridor to get to the dinner. And so we're walking, and Mike and I are trying to be serious. And then a group of people realize that Henry Kissinger's coming, so they surround him and they start taking his picture. So I wait for a few seconds and I yell out, "No more photos!" and they stopped. They stopped taking. So we walk onto the dinner with Henry, and we had to go through a metal detector. So Hank, we had gotten to know each other. Hank, by then, went on to the dinner. And then Mike and I, you know, we had taken all our stuff off. We put our stuff back on, our glasses and everything, and turned around. And as people were coming in through the metal detectors, you know, we were telling them they had to take their shoes off and things like that. But that was just such a fun, you know, it was just a fun thing that happens, you know, that, so that's in my book. That's the one of the stories. But yes, sir. Thank you. You know, because the media is changing so much, I think they have made a conscious decision. You know, now people, if you're a ultra-liberal or an ultra-conservative or whatever you are, you can go to news that completely suits your worldview or your reality, as skewed as it may be. And so I think that the AJC, I think it's a smart decision, because, you know, with the AJC, it's one of the few places you can still go and right there you can you can see what the other side is thinking, kind of. And I think it's a good thing. But you know, the AJC comes from a liberal tradition. But it had Ralph McGill and things. But it is changed because the media has changed. Although they still let me do what I want, so I really appreciate that. But they have to kind of counterbalance me a little bit. They run more conservative cartoons. Well, right, and that's, really, I agree with you. I agree with you because, and that's why when I am drawing my cartoons, I want even people that, that hate me to want to read my cartoons just for the humor, maybe. I just want them to kind of pop out at people, and that's why I try never to be boring, because I agree with you. I think that even people that don't agree with me are going to want to look at the thing. He's pointing at himself. He's pointing at himself. See, no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you read my cartoons. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be funny. I'm trying to be edgy. And yes, sir, you back there, right? Yes.
What were the 2 cartoons that you got your Pulitzer Prize on?
Oh, okay. They're actually they would be 40 cartoons because in 20 cartoons per entry, up to 20 cartoons. My lead cartoon in 2006 was that the Y cartoon that I had done, and I think that was probably my most powerful cartoon in that bunch. I can't remember from '95. No, that wasn't in there. That was 2001. Well, thank you. I didn't bring that cartoon. I should have brought it. I apologize. Did you all see the Statue of Liberty one? Now that was kind of an interesting thing because when that happened, of course you couldn't use humor, and it was such a traumatic thing. And I was at home and I was watching it on TV as it happened, and I knew when I was going into work that I had to come up with something, just the best that I could do, and so. I'm sitting in my office and I'm trying to come up with an idea, and I couldn't come up with anything. It was late in the day, and I finally came up with the one where you see reflected in the Statue of Liberty's eyes, you see the Twin Towers, and she's a tear, and you see in her eyes the plane about to hit one of the towers. So I came up with that, and the head editor at the time was Ron Martin. And he wanted to see what I was doing, so I showed him. But as I showed him the cartoon, I could feel my face getting red because I was embarrassed about the cartoon. Because I wanted to do the best I could, and I just thought I just didn't think it was the best I could do. But I had run out of time. So I drew that cartoon, and I made the copy like I always do, and I showed it to my wife. I put it down in the kitchen, and I kind of just put it down, and she could kind of tell that I wasn't happy about what I had done, and she said, well, I think that's a good cartoon. And so the next day, we began getting faxes and letters and calls saying that readers had really liked the cartoon, that they had found comfort in it. And like almost immediately, the paper, in conjunction with Kroger, made big posters up and distributed. Kroger in all their stores had the posters for like $5, and they went to the September 11th fund. It was all went to people that had been victims of 9/11, and so it became one of those things that it turned out to be a good thing. The reason why I didn't like it is because I had so many, like everyone else, so many emotions. The shock, the sadness, the anger, and with a cartoon, it's one panel, and you have to say what you're going to say in one panel. And so I had all these emotions, and I think it would have almost been impossible for me to have made myself feel like I had done everything I could in one cartoon. But in hindsight, I felt like that I was glad that I had done that cartoon. And then the next day, I did a cartoon. I can't remember the punchline. But it were police and the fire guys going up, and they were actually going into heaven. That they had, because they were. I can't remember exactly how I put it, but they were going up. You think they're going up into the building, but they're ending up in heaven, where they ended up. So I did a number of cartoons in the days and weeks after 9/11, and not too much humor for a while. Yes. Okay. You know, I took art in high school, and I did not take notes in high school. I drew in my notebooks. So that's why I draw. You know, these are 8.5 by 11, basically, same size as my notebook in school. It's the size I've always drawn. But my training was the Mad Magazine training. I would look at Mad Magazine and think, gosh, I want to draw like Mort Drucker. He's my favorite cartoonist ever. And he doesn't do them now, I don't think, but he used to do the movie satires. I don't know if you ever read Mad Magazine, but like he would do, like when The Godfather came out, he would do the movie satire on The Godfather, and he'd have this opening page and where like all the characters are sitting at dinner, and it was just beautiful. It was like Michelangelo to me. I mean, I loved looking at I would just study his work, and so I had no formal art training, but I did look at his stuff a lot. And he and another cartoonist, Jeff McNelly, who used to draw a comic strip called Shoe, and he was at the Chicago Tribune. He died probably a decade ago, but he had the same kind of style that Mort Drucker did, kind of a serious look with shading, really good caricature, just a beautiful line. And those are the two favorite. There are others. Other cartoonists who I really like. There's a guy named Ronald Searle in France who's just beautiful artwork. Oliphant, who kind of copied, or not copied, but Searle was a big influence for him. I like his artwork. Those are probably some of my another guy, Jim Boardman, is another guy that he does Zitz. He draws Zitz, the comic strip, and he was an editorial cartoonist for many years. And one of my big heroes. Another guy, the guy that I went to the dinner with, Mike Peters. Mike Peters has the goofiest drawing style, but it is so cool looking, and I really like his stuff. There's a number of them, but I like the looser style. That's kind of what I'm attracted to. Yes. Yeah, that's a good question. I think I never got the way I think you're supposed to get like a telegram that tells you before, and then like an hour before you get a phone call, or a few minutes before you get a phone call. And I know I have a telegram, but I don't remember when I got it, and I never received a phone call before, but that's because I think I was on the phone with someone, so I've always just found out when it's come over the wire and people tell me, but it's always shocking, and it's always really a fun. It's a fun day to win a prize, I'm telling you. Yeah, there are plenty of days when I think, okay, this is it. This is the day where I just have to say, you know what, I can't come up with something. And my editor has told me, she has said, listen. My deadline used to be, into the night, but she said, okay, 5:30 now, and so she said, and if you can't make that, I understand. We'll substitute something in, but and that's been, gosh, probably 3 years since that was instituted, and I haven't missed a deadline, but I get like to 5:25 or almost right to then, and I'm thinking, oh crap. But then I come up with something. So, yes. Oh, right. Yeah, no. So like the cartoon that I'm going to do tomorrow, and Mondays is always my worst day of the week. I hate Mondays, but the cartoon will I'll have it done by 6:30 usually, and then it gets posted by like 6:45. So if you go to ajc.com. And then I think you go to news, and then you get a drop down, and it says opinion. Click on that, and then you click on my cartoon, and it's there. And that's how it works. And yes, ma'am. That's a good question. Yes, they are. Some people For instance, last night I was in, I spent the weekend, my family and a couple of our kids, in Washington, Georgia, which is outside of Madison a little ways. And we were at an old plantation. It was really, it's just this incredible thing. And Doug and Susan Abramson, I don't know if any of you know him, but he was a Delta attorney. And they live out there on the weekends. It's just this fabulous place. And so I drew them last night. Now, I drew Susan, and she was harder for me to draw than Doug, because Doug just has a much easier face to draw. It's hard to explain. But yes, so it really depends. And then there are people who, like Al Gore, has always been hard for me to draw. And it's because his face is on so many different planes. It's just hard to explain. Now, but you know, that brings me to, you know, now, Eleanor, would you like me to draw you? Would that be okay? Now, maybe I think I can probably draw you from right there. I will do my best. Ladies and gentlemen, a big hand for Eleanor. You know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little drawing so you can see me, but initially I'm going to get closer to Eleanor just so I can get her eyes, because where she's at from here is a little bit hard. So I'm going to draw her, just get her eyes right here, and then I'll go back and you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, let's see. Just, folks, this will be done in 45 minutes to an hour, so just... Eleanor, you can smile if you want. Oh, you look good. You look. Okay, I'm about to. Okay, this is what we've. Let's see. Where are we? Oh, look at that. Oh, it's just sort of isn't that weird how it's slowly appearing? Did someone turn it off and on? Is that what happened? That's weird. I've never seen that done before. It's amazing. It's amazing. All right, now let's see. Now, I've never done one before where I've been in multiple places like this, so this is... Eleanor is good looking, so she's kind of difficult to draw. I mean, you know, when you... Okay, let me get just a little closer. Okay, good. All right, now what should I have Eleanor doing? What do you think? Email? You're okay. I'll even put her little badge on her. Okay. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. There we go. She's... That's supposed to be a computer. Eleanor, is it E-L-E-A-N-O-R? E-L-I, okay. E-L-I-N-O-R. Okay, Eleanor. A big hand for Eleanor, everyone. Thank you, Eleanor. You what?
Queen Honeybee.
You're the Queen Honeybee? Oh, okay. Well, all right. She's making me personalize this thing now. Okay, Queen, okay. Does a honeybee, does it have a striped rear end at the back? Uh-huh. Who's a bee expert? Harriet? What does a queen honeybee look like? Okay, well, listen. This is my version of a queen honeybee then. We'll put some yeah.
Make my ears so big like Obama.
You know, everyone's a critic. You got nice ears, Eleanor. Queenhoneybee.com, right? Isn't that what it is? Okay, I'm going to write that. Is that all one word, Eleanor? Is that all one word, queenhoneybee.com? Okay. Now, Eleanor, is there anything else you want on this drawing? There we go. All right. I will give that to your son. All right. Thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you, darling.
Oh, I'm gonna fall over right on top of her. That wouldn't be good.
I'm thrilled I'm a friend.
Oh, excellent. All right, gang. Now, okay. Before I take any more questions, let me see how we do. How we doing on time, gang? Couple more questions. All right. Okay. I'm gonna take yours right there, and I'll take the gentleman in the back after. I'll get you right there, ma'am. Oh, hey, thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you for reading me. Are you all familiar with the New Yorker cover? Okay. Prior to the election, the Republicans some Republicans were saying that, they were saying that the fist bump was a terrorist fist bump. They were saying that the Obamas, Michelle and Barack were radical, that they, Muslim. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they were saying all these different things about them. And so what the New Yorker cover did was it pretty much drew Michelle and Barack in the stereotypical way that many Republicans were. So they were fist bumping, and Michelle Obama had who's the black? Angela. What's her last name? What is it? Angela Davis. So she was in, like, they were into Sheikies or something, and there was, like, in the fireplace on fire was an American flag, and it was, and I can't remember what else there was. A Muslim dress, yeah. So it was just it was a really, the stereotype of what they had been portrayed as by the Republicans. But and there have been various debates amongst cartoonists about whether that cover worked or not. My take has always been that the cover didn't work. Because in order for something to work like that, you know, people have to understand that it's a parody, that it's that it's satire, and there was nothing to indicate that it was satire, and this would have been a clunky way of doing it. But if you know, if an elephant's hand had been in the foreground and you could see that an elephant's hand had drawn that, but that wouldn't have worked. But that's just an example of. But so one of my a good friend of mine is the editor, the cartoon editor at the New Yorker. His name is Bob Mankoff, and Bob Mankoff is so frigging funny. And he's actually a cartoonist that became the cartoon editor because he's got a good, you know, he's got the cartoonist sense, but he also has a business sense, which is really rare. And so he didn't have anything to do with the cover, but he feels the same way that I do, that the thing just didn't work, that you know, it just, a lot of times, you know, they needed a better editor at that time for that cartoon, and sometimes that just happens. Things get through, and it just didn't work. But it was close. It just didn't go far enough. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but yeah, no, it was. I mean, it was because, you know, it didn't work. If it had been even in a subtle way showing, you know, whose perspective that was, then it would have worked. That's what makes satire good, is it can be subtle, but it just wasn't right. It just wasn't right. I can't describe it any better than that. Okay, you know what? I'm supposed to only take, can I take two more? Two more. Okay, I'll take this guy's and then I'll get you as the last one. All right, you, sir. I do it from memory, but what I do, here's what I do with Obama. You know, when I'm drawing Obama, I know how to do him from memory, but I also like to look at a photo of him to, you know, like if he's angry or if I'm going to put him in a whatever scene he's in, I want to really get his likeness. So I'll go to Google Images, I'll find an Obama that I like, a photo, and I don't sit at a drawing board. I sit at my desk with my computer. I look at the photo of him and I draw it. And again, I don't pencil anything in, so I just draw it right from there, and that's how I get. So so my Obamas will look different based on what he's doing, you know, but I really like drawing him because he has a very, very interesting face. He's a very good-looking man, and but he has really interesting features. His eyes and his eyebrows are really close together. He's got a great smile. He's got a very slender face. He's got great lips. I mean, he's got a really pretty nose. I will say it's very pretty. But he's just, and then his whole body is, you know, he moves. I love how he moves because he's, you know, he's loose, and he's not, you know. This was George Bush. This was, you know, he's like, you know, it was like I'm a pretend gunfighter, you know. But you know, Obama just flows. I mean, he's just like, I just love that. I love how, you know, but it's real. I don't think. You know, Bush, I think a lot of his stuff was phony. For instance, his ranch, he didn't have that ranch anymore. He moved to Dallas as soon as his term was over. Vicente Fox, who used to be president of Mexico, had a you know, did a biography on himself or something, autobiography, and in it he talked about Bush coming to his ranch, Vicente Fox's ranch. Bush came to Vicente, and Bush was afraid of Vicente Fox's horses. See, Bush, Mr. Cowboy guy, was afraid of horses. So they, you know, that whole ranch was a Karl Rove thing, you know. What? It's true. Yeah. Oh, is there advice? Oh, gosh, got me all choked up there. Is there do I have advice for somebody who wants to do what I do? You know, I would just say to, you know, the media is moving so quickly, and I'm not sure what direction it's going in. I think it's good if you have computer skills, animation skills. But, but find a place, find like a local paper or a neighborhood paper where you could do stuff, even if it's for free, to develop. And then develop animation skills if you're in college, so that you can make your cartoons move. I think that's the best advice I could give. I really don't know where everything's going to end up, but if you have the more skills you have, the more current you are. I think even if it's not editorial cartooning, if it's apps, like iPhone apps, you're going to need to be animating, and so that's where I think that it's heading, but I don't know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.